Chapter 5 of Angel Food Time, Little Talks to Little Folks by Reverend Gerald T. Brennan. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Maria Therese. Chapter 5 The Boy Who Dusted the Devil's Tail. Eugene Newsome was my idea of a first-class altar boy. In fact, he was the best altar boy who served Mass in Old St. Charles Church. The little fellow was always on time, always neat and clean, and very serious. Serving Mass was never a job for little Eugene. It was a privilege. It was an honor for him to help the priest at the altar. All the priests and sisters at St. Charles liked Eugene. They liked him because he was always so willing to help. That's why Sister Clement, who had charge of the altar, often asked Eugene to help her with her work. Every Saturday morning Eugene was on the job to help Sister Clement. He helped with the flowers. He polished candlesticks, filled the holy water fonts, and kept the altar boys' robes in perfect order. You can see, then, that Eugene was Sister Clement's right-hand man. Well, one Saturday Eugene had worked very hard all morning. He was tired and decided to go home. "Is there anything else you want me to do?" he asked Sister Clement. "Yes," answered Sister quickly. "Will you dust St. Michael's statue before you go?" Eugene nodded his head, took a cloth and a chair, and started for the statue. For a moment he stood before the statue and smiled. St. Michael, you know, was Eugene's hero. The boy liked St. Michael because he stood there so bravely, sticking his spear right through the devil. Eugene liked St. Michael so much that he felt like shaking the saint's hand, but he knew he couldn't do that because he was in church. Eugene stood on the chair and began to dust. He dusted high and he dusted low. The little fellow gave St. Michael the best dusting he ever had. After all, wasn't St. Michael the boy's hero? Sure, he was, and Eugene wanted St. Michael to look his very best for the people who would see him the next morning. Finally, Eugene sat down on the chair. Boy, he was tired, but he still had work to do. He still had to dust the devil's tail. Well, that was one job that the little fellow didn't like, so he wasn't too particular. After all, the devil was a bad fellow, and why should the boy try to make him look nice? He stroked the devil's tail twice with his cloth, and suddenly stopped. His dust cloth fell to the floor, and Eugene Newsome fell sound asleep. "Eugene!" called a voice in his sleep, and the little fellow raised his head. And what do you think? There, standing before the boy, was the devil. Yes, it was the devil from hell, all dressed in red and a very long tail. "Eugene," said the devil, "I have come to thank you for dusting my tail and to reward you. Come with me and I'll give you a grand present." The little fellow could hardly believe his eyes or his ears. Yes, it was the devil all right, and he seemed very friendly. The devil was trying to be kind, and little Eugene believed in him. Well, the devil walked and walked, and little Eugene followed him. They walked in places where Eugene had never been before, and all the time the devil did most of the talking. "Maybe the devil isn't such a bad fellow after all," thought Eugene to himself several times. "The devil certainly wasn't mean or nasty, like so many people had said he is." Eugene began to change his mind about the old fellow. No, the devil was not bad at all. He was a kind fellow, very friendly, and certainly very good to Eugene. Eugene and the devil walked a long time, and finally they came to a river. It wasn't a very wide river, and the water was very clear. "Here we are," said the devil as he smiled down on the little boy. For a moment Eugene was afraid. He wondered what the devil would do next. He almost wished that he hadn't come. He knew then that he was taking a big chance going to a strange place with the big devil himself. Oh, there were so many ways that the devil could have harmed the little boy. No wonder Eugene was afraid. Of course, the devil didn't know what little Eugene was thinking, and, maybe, it was just as well that he didn't know. The big fellow stood looking across the river for some time. Then he spoke very kindly. "You will find 3 bags of gold on the other side of the river," said the devil to the boy. Go over there and take all you want as a reward for dusting my tail." Little Eugene's eyes snapped when he heard the words. Immediately he dove into the water and swam across the river to the other side. And sure enough, at the foot of a tree, the little boy found 3 white bags. When he opened the bags, he could hardly believe his eyes. Yes, the 3 bags were filled with gold. Well, it didn't take Eugene very long to fill all his pockets with gold. He even filled his shirt with gold, and also slipped some of the gold into his shoes. Now the gold was heavy, and the boy took so much of it that he could hardly walk. Then Eugene jumped into the water again and tried to swim. Oh, but the boy couldn't swim. He had too much gold, and the gold weighed him down so much that he began to sink. He tried to save himself, but he was helpless. The devil's gold was dragging the boy down to the bottom of the river. Finally, the boy made one strong try. He fought with all his might to get to the top of the water. He swung his arms and fought so hard that, suddenly, the boy awoke. For a moment he was afraid. Then he realized that it was all a dream. Let me tell you that Eugene did no more dusting that day. And as the little boy walked slowly home, he muttered to himself, "Gee, I almost lost my life just because I dusted the devil's tail." That day Eugene learned a very valuable lesson, and I hope that you, too, will learn the same lesson. Don't ever do any favors for the devil. Remember, he's a sly, foxy fellow, and he'll lead you into trouble every chance he gets. He may pretend to be your friend, but don't forget that he hates you. So be on your guard. The devil's gifts will get you into trouble every time. Children, never trust the devil. God bless you, and take good care of yourself. End of chapter 5.